Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well today. So today I am kicking off my sewing projects, and the first one I decided to tackle this season is this pair of pants that's hanging out behind me. So let me get it down and show it to you really quickly. So these are high-waisted, lightweight, elasticated waist, flowy pants, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. I used the Seamwork Patterns Joss pant pattern, and I didn't really change anything about it other than one mistake that we'll get into a little bit as I show you the sewing process, but that didn't affect anything too much. So I really like them. The fabric is really nice and flowy. It's this lightweight rayon, and I love the daisy print. I was really inspired by a pair of pants I saw on the Madewell website that was really cute, and I thought perfect for kind of transitioning into fall. I like this darker background floral for going into fall. So let's go ahead and get into it and let me show you how I made them. So first things first, I'm going to lay out my fabric, and the fabric that I chose for this project is this really cute rayon. It has a black background with yellow and white daisies printed on it, and I really like the drape of it. And once my fabric is laid out, I can go ahead and cut out my pattern pieces. Now I am cutting this pattern out just as it's indicated in the instructions. So I'm cutting out all of the pieces. I'm also checking to make sure that the pant legs are really straight with the grain because I want them to drape really nicely, and then I can pin everything down and cut it out. There are several pattern pieces for this project, but it's not too complicated. There is a pocket piece, which you'll need two of, and then here I'm cutting out the pant front. So there's two of these, one for each of the pant legs, and then the same thing for the back. And then there is also a waistband piece, a front and back waistband, and you'll want two of each of those waistband pieces. Since the waistband pieces are cut on the fold, to save a little bit of time, I've doubled up my fabric here, and I'm going to cut through 4 layers of fabric on the fold. That way I can cut out the 2 pieces of the waistband at one time and just save a little bit of time. So with all of my pattern pieces cut out, I could go ahead and get my sewing machines threaded up with matching thread and get started on this project. So the first thing to work on is the pocket, and the first thing I'm going to do is just finish off the 3 lower edges of the pocket with my serger. So once those edges were serged, I could go ahead and fold under one of the long edges of the pocket as well as the bottom edge 1/4 of an inch. Then I folded under the top 1/4 of an inch, and then again 1 inch here. Because one of the sides will be encased in the side seam, we don't have to fold that one over. So just make sure that you fold over opposite sides for the long edge so that your pockets will match up correctly. Then I'm just going to top stitch that top edge to hem off the top of the pocket. I'm going to add the pockets to the front pieces. So I'm just pinning this on, and I will sew around those 2 folded edges, just top stitch it to the pant legs. Now here I actually made a mistake, guys, and pinned and sewed mine on too low. I didn't follow the markings correctly, so just watch out for that if you're making it yourself. Because my fabric is such a busy pattern, I don't think the positioning matters too much because they really blend into the pant legs, so I'm just going to leave it as is. So with my pockets attached, I can now go ahead and sew the 2 front pieces together at the center seam. So I'm just pinning that down right sides together, and I will stitch this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And here you can see the stitching from the pocket on the back here, if that makes it a little bit clearer. I'm going to do the same thing with the center seam on the 2 back pieces since there's no pocket here, and stitch both of those down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then just serge off any excess with my serger. So now I have the 2 halves of my project put together, which is really exciting, and I can sew this all together. So I'm going to start by pinning it down the side seam. So these are those outer side seams, and I'll sew that down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and also finish off the edge with my serger. But while I'm pinning these, I'm going to go ahead and pin my inseam. So I'm matching up the center seams at the front and back, and then I will pin down both of the legs here and go ahead and sew that seam all the way from one end to the other, pivoting in the middle there at the center seam. So with the main part of the pants constructed, we can move on to the waistband, and the first thing to do is to sew the front and back pieces together at the sides with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. You have one waistband piece that will be the outer waistband and the other will be the inner waistband. Those side seams are sewn. I'm going to press up the lower edge of the inner waistband 1/4 of an inch, and this will just keep everything really neat on the inside. So now I'm going to put the two waistband pieces together, and I'm going to pin these together with the right sides together, matching up the side seams all along the top edge, and I'm going to sew this down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once I've sewn that seam, I'm going to trim off any excess here with my scissors, and then I'm just going to understitch this to keep the inside of the waistband turned towards the inside of the pants. So now I can attach the waistband to the pants, so I'm matching up the edge of the outer waistband to the waistline of the pants with the right sides together, and then I'll sew all the way around this with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So next I'm going to press the inner waistband towards the inside of the garment, and this should turn really easily and fold really nicely if you've done the understitching here. And I'll just pin this down all the way around to get ready to top stitch at the bottom of the waistband to attach the two layers together. So I'm going to top stitch all the way around, but I'm going to make sure to leave a gap here because we are going to be putting elastic into the waistband, so we want to have a gap left to do that. So I'm just top stitching close to the lower edge of the waistband and making sure to leave that gap for the elastic once I get to the end. So I cut a piece of elastic that fits my waist comfortably, and I'm just going to thread this through the elastic casing that we made here with the waistband using a safety pin. And once it's threaded through, I will just overlap the two ends and then stitch that down with a zigzag stitch to secure those together to create one elastic loop. Then after I sew that together, I can pull the waistband so that the elastic goes into the casing and top stitch it closed where we left that gap before. So now all that's left to do is hem the pants, and I opted to do a pretty narrow hem here because I wanted them to keep a little bit of length. So I'm just turning mine under 1/4 of an inch twice, and then I'll just top stitch that down on both sides to hem. So here are how the pants turned out. I'm really happy with them. I love this fabric. It's so lightweight and flowy, and the elasticated waist on this pattern, it makes it so comfortable as well. So I would definitely make these again in a different fabric. And I think you can see that the pockets really do blend in, so I don't think that positioning was too much of an issue. So overall, I'm really happy with this project. Alright guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed seeing this whole sewing process and going along with me while I made these pants. I'm excited to have gotten started on my fall sewing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how all the projects come together, but I know I'll be wearing these a lot as we get into the new season, especially as we're in this kind of transitional time where some lighter weight pieces of clothing might be really useful. I hope you enjoyed watching the whole process. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, you can go ahead and do that now by clicking the red button down below if you want to stay notified about my future fall sewing projects. I would love to have you along in the future. And if you'd like to keep up with me outside of YouTube, Instagram is the place to do that. So I will put that here on the screen. But thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out on my channel today, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye!